Looks like the flow of folks coming in is slowing down, so I believe we can get started. Thanks for everyone for introducing themselves in the chat. I am Bill Della Sola, um, board chair of AVCC, and also am conservation analyst with the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. Greetings, friends and fellow conservationists. It's always such a joy to gather and connect around our shared conservation interests. Being here together in this community builds energy for all of our efforts, and banding together in the many ways that we do is essential to meeting the challenges of this moment that we're facing in the conservation world. So again, offer my sincerest thanks for all of you to be hearing today. A special thanks goes to everyone involved in local conservation efforts, to our AVCC membership, which is notably higher than last year. Our dedicated board and staff, Alex, Marion, Mead, Justin, Greta, Megan, and to our many sponsors, partners, and members. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge the Vermont Natural Resources Council, Vermont Agency of Natural Resources, Vermont Land Trust, the Nature Conservancy, and Vermont Housing Conservation Board, and the many other organizations who support and collaborate with AVCC. And speaking for AVCC, we're doing our best to think creatively and intentionally about how we can provide more value to our membership and how we can advance local conservation efforts. We're eager to explore new relationships and deepen existing partnerships. So with that in mind, I invite you always to feel free to reach out to us with your ideas, your interests in partnering, or your thoughts on how we can do better to further and catalyze local conservation action. We've also been fine-tuning our programs, guided by the feedback we received on our recent membership survey. Our goal is to foster stronger connections and greater collaboration across this wonderful network. And in addition to our existing programs, including our Conservation Commission Handbook, which remains a one-stop resource, whether you're a fledgling CC or part of a well-established commission, for all things about CC work. That is on our website, and our listserv now connects over 600 members and is a great way to connect and collaborate with folks across the network. And so some new things we're working on, and I'll touch on in more detail later in the meeting. We're working to increase the maximum amount available for our Tiny Grants program. We're relaunching our quarterly e-news. We're developing a webinar series to highlight how town forests are created and the special relationships they foster. And we are kicking off regional gatherings designed to bring folks together in person to share ideas and strengthen relationships. Our first being Saturday, October 11th in Hardwick, co-hosted by Craftsbury, Greensboro, and Hardwick CCs, and we'll have representatives, we hope, from around 16 commissions, with a focus on networking and peer-to-peer learning. So today, we're asking our membership to vote on the election of new board members, as well as updates to our bylaws that will increase our capacity and modernize our work. And since we have a packed agenda, like I said, we will share these details, more details on these efforts later, and also open the floor to feedback and comments from you all. And just so you know that this meeting is being recorded so that folks can review it after the fact. But when it comes to Q&A at the end, we're going to take off the recording so folks feel warm and included, like we're in the room together. So for today's agenda, further moving forward, we will begin with Mead Benhammer, who will provide a finance and membership update. From there, we'll hear from Marion Walls, who will facilitate our board elections. I'm excited to hear from presenters from Moncton, Cambridge, and South Hero about their local conservation efforts, followed by presentations from the Vermont Institute of Natural Science and Vermont Center for Eco Studies. And so again, thank you all for being here, for your inspiring commitment to conservation, and for all the work you do in your communities. And so let's get started. Mead, are you ready to take the mic?
Sure. Alex, could you advance a couple slides? One more. All right. So thank you for the introduction, Bill. My name is Mead Benhammer. I'm the treasurer of AVCC. And I'm just going to speak briefly about sort of our financial status and progress and our current membership. So on the left here, you can see a map of active conservation commissions in the state of Vermont. Those are in both blue and green. And green are all of the member conservation commissions who have helped to support AVCC over the past year. This year we had almost a doubling in member commissions compared to the previous 3 years. So we're incredibly grateful for all of your dedication to conservation and support of AVCC. We had 15 new members this year. We also had 7 individual members or individual donors. And now I'll dive into our finances. So one of the things that we've been really proud of over the past couple of years is reducing the amount of our budget that is spent on our operating costs and increasing the amount that goes directly to you all through our Tiny Grants program. So you'll see on the left here in the pie chart is a breakdown of our expenses for the past year. This is from September 30 or October 1st to September 30th of this year. 95% of our expenses were on the Tiny Grants that we awarded this spring, with only about 5% of our expenses covering operating expenses like keeping the website operational. And in the graphs to the right, you can see the breakdown from 2023, fiscal year 2023 and 2022, where we had more of our budget dedicated to those operating expenses. So that's really been a focus of ours. And additionally, you can see the breakdown here in the revenue that has come into AVCC. The pie chart on the right reflects the previous year. We had about 50% of our total revenue come from Conservation Commission membership. But we also had a large portion of our revenue come from Tiny Grant sponsorships. And just want to shout out the Nature Conservancy, Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission, and Vermont Natural Resources Council for helping to support our Tiny Grants this spring. We also had some event revenue that came in this year from our participation in the statewide conservation conference. And always looking to expand our revenue streams in future years to make us more financially stable, but also to be able to support conservation commissions throughout the state with more money through Tiny Grants and other initiatives. So thank you all for your membership. It's a really important part of our financial health, but also wanted to give you the update that we're looking for new ways to be financially healthy as well. So thank you so much for your time, and thanks for coming.
Thank you so much, Mead. Marion, are we ready to work on our board elections?
Yes, happy to. Thanks, Bill, and thanks, Mead, for the financial update and membership overview. As Bill noted in his introduction to today's meeting, we have a fantastic board of folks that are supporting the mission of AVCC and to help promote conservation across Vermont. And we are interested today in facilitating with you all as AVCC members the election of 2 folks to join the AVCC board to help us build capacity and support you all as members. So you'll see their photos up on the slide here. And I'll read short bios for both Megan and Amanda, and then we will have a poll for you all as members of AVCC to vote on appointment of Megan and Amanda to joining the board. So Megan, which is the first photo you can see on the slide here, is the Assistant Director of Academic Programs at the Arthur Irving Institute for Energy and Society at Dartmouth College, where she supports design and execution of the Institute's multidisciplinary energy and society education programs. Before that, she served for over 5 years at the Museum of Science in Boston, partnering with scientists and the research centers to help them communicate their work to public audiences and academic audiences. Megan has a PhD in biology, specializing in urban bird ecology from Rutgers University Newark and the New Jersey Institute of Technology. She's a past member of the Mount Holly Conservation Commission and has been serving in a vacant position on the board of AVCC since December of 2024. And Amanda, you'll see her photo, the second photo on the slide here, serves as a stewardship manager at the Vermont River Conservancy, where she's responsible for field-based easement monitoring and land stewardship projects. She has a bachelor's in environmental science with an emphasis on terrestrial ecology and graduate level study in conservation ethics, ecology, and natural resource management from UVM's Rubenstein School. She has rich experience as a project leader, park ranger, trails manager, and conservation educator, and brings enthusiasm and a can-do sense of adventure and attitude to everything she does. So we are interested in appointing Megan to one of the volunteer seats that serves on the AVCC board, and Amanda as one of the appointed seats on the AVCC board. And so Alex, I believe, will share a poll looking for membership to weigh in on the addition and approval of Amanda Garland and Megan Litweiler to the AVCC board. There are options to approve yes, no, or to abstain. And we'll just let the poll run for a couple minutes here, a minute or so here, to gain input from you all as members. We've got almost all of our participants participated in the poll here. We'll give it just another 10 seconds. Great. Well, it looks like overwhelmingly we've approved the addition of Amanda and Megan to the AVCC board, with 31 folks voting yes and 2 abstaining from the vote. Thanks, folks, so much for your input and engagement. We'll be sharing more about how we really see AVCC growing to support you all as members, and as Bill highlighted, some additional programming and thoughts that you all have shared through previous surveys. So excited to share that further, and welcome Megan and Amanda. Thanks so much, folks.
Thanks, Marion, and congratulations to our new board members. So here, the next vote is proposed bylaw changes. One is to increase the size of the board. The second is to require at least 3 board members are active members of CCs, and that is designed to keep with the existing ratio that we have. Another concept or thing we want to facilitate is updating and modernize language around member communications. There is a place in our bylaws that references mailing as opposed to emailing, so we want to fix that. And introduce more flexibility over board subcommittee structure so that the board has more latitude around nomination of board members and other facets. So curious if we can put that poll up. And this is really designed so that we can increase the capacity for the board and, like I said, modernize our practices. It seems to me like we are getting really close to having a 100% yes vote, which is awesome. So if folks want to either, we just have about a minute to do this, but I feel like there is general consensus, and I appreciate the confidence that the membership has in these changes and in the board, and as it relates to providing more value to our membership. So thank you so much. Mary, do you feel good? Yep, there we go. Excellent. So now I believe we are going to roll into the fun part of the agenda, hearing from our presenters. So excited, and Marion, take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Bill. So I am going to do a very quick introduction to the 3 conservation commissions we're so excited to hear about today, about the work that they've been doing through support from the Tiny Grants on expanding access to conservation, education, and engagement with folks within their communities. First, we'll hear from Sue with the Moncton Conservation Commission about the bird lending kits that Moncton has been facilitating together with their local library. Then we'll hear from Jamie with the Cambridge Conservation Commission, where they're focused on expanding community education and engagement through things like a Bring Your Own Cutlery program, a welcome pamphlet, and a community survey. And then we'll hear from Mark with the South Hero Conservation Commission about both their Kestrel Education and Outreach Program and a few other projects that they, as a newer Conservation Commission, are pursuing within their community. And so with that, I am going to share my screen with the slides for Sue, and we'll hand it over to you, Sue, to kick off your presentation.
Thanks,
In just a
Marian.
moment here to pull your slides up.
Oh, okay. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm from Moncton, and we are the tiny grant recipients for the grant that we applied for was for birdwatching kits, and we are cooperating with our town's library for the circulation of them. So if you want to go to the next slide, Marian. So we took on this project as part of our mission, which is the same similar mission that you all have to take advantage of community education on conservation topics and forward projects and opportunities for that for our town's community. And that's where we're coming from with the education part of the bird watching kits. And so this slide's just a quote of the Conservation Commission mission. So there's that. So if we want to go to the next slide. So a lot of you are probably birders, and you've probably been asked the question, what was your spark bird that got you into birding? And our Conservation Commission in Moncton has had a little bit of a soft focus, if you will, on birding over the past couple of years. We sponsored a bird walk. We cooperated with our town's rec committee on managing our park for bird habitat, specifically the bobolinks and their nesting and the mowing of the park and that kind of thing. So we've kind of been focused on birds, and the question of what was your spark bird kind of sparked the idea of bird watching kits for the library to help us lend out. There are libraries out in the world that will lend things other than books, ranging from, garden equipment to seeds to houseplant exchange, and even things like DVDs and CDs and all sorts of things. And even some board games you can borrow from libraries, including the Russell Memorial Library. So it was not such a far leap to wonder if the library could help us get some binoculars out into the community and get people sparked on birding, and hopefully that leads to more involvement in other conservation topics. That's how we got the idea. And it didn't seem like too far of a leap, or if it seemed like a good fit for the tiny grant program as well. So Marian, if you want to go to the next slide. When we talked to the library about them, we are fortunate in Moncton to have a strong library with a dynamic staff that's can-do attitude. So they were all game to help us pull this off and agreed to take care of the items and put them into the circulation system. So I'll get to what's in them in a minute, but they're very excited to have them in the circulation. And so far this summer, there's only been one circulation so far. And as you can see in this quote here, our library has had some turnover that was pretty disruptive for them this past summer. So they are doing pretty well given that amount of turnover. They've had one of the kits, we bought three sets of items for three different kits, and they are named after the color of the binoculars. So the blue kit has been out in circulation so far. And I'm hoping that with migration in full swing, folks realize that and maybe take advantage of the other two kits so far this autumn. So there's that. If you want to go to the next slide, Marian. Here's me launching the kits at our town's Strawberry Festival, which is a fundraiser for the library every June. And yes, I have a Moncton sweatshirt. We have a dynamic little town here. And the Parent Teacher Association for the school has fundraisers, and they do things like hats and shirts and whatnot. So I thought it was appropriate to wear my Moncton sweatshirt that day. And these are the kits, so the backpacks, and the items in the kits are in each of the backpacks. We chose the backpacks because it keeps everything for the kit together and gives the borrower room for a snack or their lunch or water bottle or whatever else they want to fit in there, their normal size backpacks. And within the backpack is each a set of binoculars, little ones, $99 binoculars from a company called Knox, N-O-C-S, and they're pretty good binoculars. They're 10 by and they're pretty lightweight, and I might buy a pair for myself, honestly. There's also a bird guide book and a few laminated fold-out pamphlets with bird pictures in them for even faster bird identification. And there is an adapter for your iPhone, for your smartphone, to take a picture of your bird through the binoculars. I think that's pretty cool. So that's also from that company Knox. So that it facilitates sharing your sightings with friends and family and posting to things like eBird or Merlin, and you can get involved with those sorts of groups. So that's what we did. Uh, that's how we launched them, and they're out in the world. And I think that's my last slide, Marion, right? Yes, there we go. There's my migration art picture.
That's so great, Sue. Thank you so much for the quick presentation. And I know we were really excited to hear about how Moncton is doing with the lending of the binocular and birding kits, and really excited to hear that there's so much interest from the community in the library. I failed to say this at the top, but if folks have questions as we go through the presentations, feel free to put them in the chat. And would love to kind of read them out to Sue and Jamie and Mark as we work through. I know I have a question for as folks are seeing and thinking about things they might want to ask. Would love to hear, Sue, for you to expand a little bit on sort of the relationship with the library and how you all are facilitating lending out those kits and sort of what that's looked like in their community. I know a lot of folks, a lot of communities have fantastic libraries, but if they maybe haven't had as close of a relationship with their library, how might a conservation commission go out and start to cultivate that?
Sure. We are fortunate in Moncton. We have a dynamic and game library staff. Also, our library is right there in our town offices building, our town hall building. So they're pretty accessible. And if you're around the town hall, you can actually usually hear them talking. So it's easy to just pop in and say hi and introduce yourself. And our library is focused on community development opportunities, not just lending books. So they have many little events. They have a game night, they have a poem night, they have a stitching night, things like that. So they're happy to be involved, and they recognize the role and the influence that they can have in our community over providing places for people to connect and build community and interact and build relationships. So this wasn't such a big leap for them, honestly. It was really emails back and forth to our head librarian, who has since moved on. And we have a new head librarian, Catherine, who is game to fill Lisa's shoes and is only just getting started, but I'm sure that she's going to fill Lisa's shoes and some. And it was really that simple. We didn't have to work that hard. We had a library staff that's game for it.
That's great. Well, not seeing any other questions in the chat, and in the interest of time, do want to move on to our next presentation. But thank you again, Sue. And folks, if you have questions, feel free to add them in and we can get to them in the chat as well. Thanks so much, Sue.
Thanks.
Great. Well, Jamie, I will hand it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you should have permissions to be able to share yours.
Okay, sounds good. Let me get this set up. All right, it's been a while since I've done this. Everyone can see okay? And hear me okay?
Looks great. Thanks, Jamie.
Awesome. Well, hello, my name is Jamie. I am here representing the Cambridge Conservation Commission, and today I'm going to talk about three main projects that we've worked on the past year, one of which is our Bring Your Own Cutlery initiative. Another one is our community welcome pamphlet, and then finally a community survey that we've had going out for about the past 6 months or so. To start off, our Bring Your Own Cutlery initiative was funded by a tiny grant. where the idea was we want to promote people bringing their own containers and cutlery to the Jeffersonville Farmers Market that runs every week on Wednesday afternoons. And the idea is that if you bring your own cutlery, your own Tupperware, even just a plate from your house, you can get $1 off your purchase at the farmers market. It's entirely funded by the grant and also community donations. You can see we have a little donation jar on the side here that people can contribute to. And we usually get about 3 to 5 participants per farmers market. We would like to see those numbers go up, of course. And some of the challenges that we've come across, one we think is just advertising. We have our stand that talks about this right at the front of the farmers market, so people do see it first. But a lot of the time, especially if they're first timers to the farmers market, they don't know that this is an option. And they show up and they're like, oh, shoot, I totally would have participated, but I don't have anything with me and I'm not going to run all the way home to get a plate or something. Another problem that we came across was we realized we didn't actually connect with our vendors before we applied for the grant and started this going. And there were just, I don't want to say problems, but there was definitely surprises with some of the vendors when people would come up and hand them their own plate and say, hey, can you put the food that you have on my plate instead of in your regular container? So our hope for next year is that we can do better with advertising and just getting this program out there and into the community, and that we can connect with our vendors before the market season starts so that we can figure out how we can better work together to be able to have people bring their own cutlery and plates and things to the market and be able to get food from their vendors. The another big project that we had this past year was our community welcome packet. It is a brochure style. I actually have the pretty much final draft on the next couple slides, but it's just a welcome packet that we wanted to send out to new members of the community. And the main goals of this packet were, of course, to welcome new members and old, people that might not be aware of different programs that we have going around, bring awareness to such programs like the cutlery program or the Japanese knotweed eradication project or the waste disposal programs that we have, because every town lets you recycle things differently. So just getting people education on how Cambridge and Jeffersonville operate and the different things that we have available, including local hiking trails. We've got Smuggler's Notch State Park. We've got the Crutch Preserve. We've got so many fabulous outdoor places that honestly, a lot of residents that have even been here a while might not use all of them or might not think of them. So just getting people to know about the projects and programs and things that are available in the community to get them outside, to make them more sustainable, to have them connecting with their community more. This is one side of that brochure I was mentioning. I'll just leave it up for a second so that people can peruse. This is not quite the final version, but this is pretty much what we're hoping to be able to hand out to residents and new folks in town. Like I said, it's a brochure style, so this will be folded and we'll have another side to it as well with more details of different things going on. This is the other side of the pamphlet. A big thing that we have been struggling with, and honestly, we are welcome to ideas if people have any, is the best way to actually disseminate this information to folks, especially because it's targeted towards people that are new to the community. It's not like there's some database that just has every new renter that's in town. So obviously, like, we'll have this at our stands when we're at the farmers market. We'll leave it in the town hall and other places that we leave flyers. We'll reach out to local businesses to see if we can leave it on their countertops and in their brochure stands. But just in terms of getting it to people that might not be getting out into town yet, we're kind of figuring out how we can make sure that this pamphlet can get to those folks. Finally, something that was not grant funded at all, but I think was very useful information that we've gotten over the past few months that I think other folks would find useful as well, is our community survey results. We had this out as a QR code in a few different places, but predominantly when we've been going to farmers markets or hosting different events, we asked people to try to fill out the survey and just get a better idea of what events people are interested in, how they're finding out about them, and what makes them want to participate or not in certain events. So it's just a bunch of data. You don't have to read all this text, but the main ideas are that a lot of people are just not super familiar with the different projects and programs and things that ourselves, the Conservation Commission, or other organizations and people in town are running. So that just right off the bat kind of tells us that word is not getting spread as much as we would like about the programs that are happening. Good news is that people do feel welcomed by us and the community, so it's not like they're getting scared away. They're just not even finding out about it in the first place. People have said when they do get information, they mostly get it from and prefer to get it from Front Porch Forum. So I was kind of surprised by these results of just how huge people prefer Front Porch Forum even to email or social media. So I just thought that was very useful. We do use ourselves Front Porch Forum a lot, as well as social media and our emailing lists. And we post information on our website and things, but Front Porch Forum and our social media are probably our main ways that we're trying to communicate with the town. When we asked people what kind of events they prefer, we had kind of across the board wide range of interests. We didn't really have any options where people weren't interested at all. People want to do a whole bunch of different things, so I thought that was pretty cool. People are especially interested in educational events and adventurous events. And for things that make people actually want to get involved, the top results were hands-on and educational events. This was the one that I was most interested in and curious about, because one of the main projects we've been running besides the two I talked about earlier, community engagement projects, is our Japanese knotweed eradication project. I'm assuming that pretty much everyone here is familiar with Japanese knotweed and the problem that it's caused across the state. But brief summary, it's a crazy invasive. It's very hard to get rid of. It takes a lot of labor to get it out of the system. So we try to regularly have every month or so a meetup where people will meet at a location where there's a lot of knotweed and we'll just hand pull and try to get rid of the knotweed. That, in my opinion, is a very hands-on and educational event, but we've had very poor turnout lately. So going forward, we kind of want to try to figure out why, when the people are saying that they like hands-on and educational events, why are they still not showing up to it? Is it just too overwhelming? Is it at bad times? Is it just that they're not interested anymore? We're not really sure. So that's kind of what we're looking to try to find out more information about in the future. But those are the three main projects that the Cambridge Conservation has been working on lately. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks so much, Jamie. If folks have questions, feel free to raise your hand or put questions in the chat. I know Jamie threw some questions out for folks as well. If other conservation commissions have had experience sharing information, pamphlets with new folks to your community, how have you gone about doing that? And Alex just posted a question in the chat too about whether and how conservation commissions have the same thing, kind of identified and engaged new residents. So I'd love to hear if folks have reflections on that, if you've done similar work, or if you have a question for Jamie about all of the awesome engagement work that the Cambridge Conservation Commission is doing.
While we wait for a minute, I will go back to the slides that had our pamphlet information on it.
We can all look at the beautiful logo.
I do want to give a shout out. I don't believe she was able to make it today, but our lead board member, Jane, did all of the artwork. So the mountains right there, that's her work, as well as our bird and clover artwork that was all hand-drawn or hand-painted by her.
It's really beautiful. So I'll just note, Cynthia in the chat shared that Shrewsbury Conservation Commission, or Shrewsbury, has a town-wide monthly newsletter that's full of news, is widely read on paper, and is posted on the town website. So that sounds like a helpful way to kind of get information out and start to build a rapport with folks within your community.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm not seeing other questions or hands in the chat. So thank you, Jamie, so much for your presentation. Again, if folks have questions or want to just start to share tips and things that you all have done in the chat, I think we can continue to do that as we move on to Mark.
Thank
Great.
you all.
Thanks again,
Thank you.
Jamie. Mark, I'm going to pull up the photos you shared with me if you want to kind of talk through the Kestrel project work that South Hero Conservation Commission did. I'll do that on my end as you start to talk.
Okay, thank you. So apologies for not having video. I ended up traveling across the country and don't have very good cell phone service, so I'm preserving any bandwidth to be able to see what you guys can share with me in your videos. So I'm in northern Quebec right now, trying to work my way back to Vermont. The South Hero Conservation Commission is relatively young. It's I think we're in our third year, and South Hero has a very strong land trust, effective, mature, great leadership. So there was some question when the Conservation Commission was founded is how we interact, and being a municipal entity, really it's the core of some initial work on a natural resource inventory in collaboration with the South Hero Land Trust, and then advising on other conservation efforts or working with the town plan revisions and things like that. In any event, we had heard through Jens when we started how making things fun and engaging and exciting was the key thing to get residents involved and build the momentum with the Conservation Commission. So Bridget Butler, who was our early chair, and Bob Farvood, who really started and spearheaded a lot of the work, applied for the grant for this Kestrel nest building project. I think there was some connection with Jim Armbruster down at Vins, and I think mentioned to Bridget that there wasn't a lot of good data on kestrels, although we know they're in decline up in the islands. And so we decided to pursue this as an initial project to engage the community. So I think we started in the very first year, sort of transitioned winter into spring, got a few nest boxes constructed and up. And then this spring, with the funds of the grant and also some funds from town, we had 26 people show up at the Folsom Community School and had this multi-generational nest building event. And it was great. And then they were mounted within a week or so afterwards. The results weren't great. I think there were only 2 nests that fledged a kestrel. Some were outcompeted by starlings and other, and some were reluctant to nudge those invaders out of the kestrel boxes. Others just let things go. So we're hopeful that this continuing project, sort of citizen science project, will carry on. We did it at the school, and there was a science teacher at the school who adopted one with the students. So we're hoping the students will be annually engaged to go out and inspect and prep the project. It's in behind the Folsom Community Center. And is remarkable. I never imagined we'd get that many people or build that many boxes. We decided that we weren't going to limit it just to South Hero, that we invited people in adjoining towns. And so we had a few in Alburgh, some in Grand Isle, but I think the majority were in South Hero. So that was really great, and we're excited that it's a continuing project. We had hoped that we would have some sort of more favorable results to report and get people engaged about, but we'll just keep working on it. South Hero, we've had some struggles with commission members, as I've heard, and we hear it again today, in recruitment and engagement of residents. I think we're going to just continue to, as we heard from Jamie, a survey and outreach. It's always challenging. We try to get people to meetings and have yummy goodies and things like that. But our most success has been collaborative outreach events like the Kestrel demonstration project that was at our local library, which is an amazing resource. And recently, the town was participating with ARPA and BIL funding to look at a parcel of land for community wastewater. And the town ended up acquiring a significant parcel, and it was previously subdivided. There's some potential developers coming in to do a couple pieces. Community housing, things like that are some of the ideas for it. But mostly it was just to secure a place that had the community wastewater capacity. Two of the parcels of I think it's a 7 or 8 parcel, 70 something acres, and to the largest tracts aren't developable. And they're adjacent conserved land, which is run by Pegasus Farms up in South Hero, the old Landon farm. And so we're exploring now a designation of that undevelopable parcel as a town forest, which is uniquely within the sort of parameters of what a typical conservation commission might be involved in. So we're hoping that that new project will create engagement and connectivity. We'll be having people, we're going to mow some trails and get people out after the county forester, Charlie Hancock, comes and provides us with an initial assessment and inventory and the beginnings of a draft management plan for us to engage people about what do you want to do with this parcel that's now owned by the town and has some remarkable attributes. Trail connectivity to other existing trails that have been developed throughout the town, habitat. A big part of it is a wetland. There's some interesting historical tree plantings that were there back in the day, I think back in the CCC days. It's also sort of the headwaters of the only non-intermittent stream on the island that I'm aware of. And so it's got some interesting, unique qualities, and we're hopeful that that's the next opportunity of engagement of residents. And we have a lot of seasonality in South Hero, folks that come from other places and have a home on the lake or in town. And so trying to bridge that sort of more year-round residents with the seasonal residents is also a bit of a challenge in getting consistent engagement. But we're open to ideas, and if anybody has any solutions that they've come up with, we'd love to hear about them.
Awesome.
If anybody has any questions, I wanted to be quick and make time for the smart people in the room at VINS and let Jim go for it.
Well, I'll just, before we hand it over to Jim, thanks so much, Mark, for calling in from the road. I know you're sort of in the midst of a travel. Really awesome to hear about the Kestrel project, and know we'll hear more from Jim about that in just a moment. But we did have a question in the chat, sort of someone asking about tactics to get commission members engaged in projects sort of outside of monthly meetings. And if you had any reflections, Mark, it looks like you had great turnout for the Kestrel Box event. And if you had any tips or ideas about sort of how to get commission members kind of engaged in some projects outside of commission meetings.
Yeah, so those sort of participatory events seem to work great. There's a lot of planning and the coordination that has to happen, and that takes the work of the monthly meetings in between. We don't get great public attendance at our monthly meetings. It's pretty much members, and once in a while someone from the select board or someone else who has a particular interest in something we're talking about. So we're still trying to figure out whether we should have monthly meetings or our regular meetings that have a a special guest or something that is it's sort of like this, beyond the regular business part of the meetings, that we have someone coming to give a presentation. And we were doing it at the library. It's just a nicer facility than our town hall. And I think we're going to try to go back to that. Well, there's always some question with these meetings as whether we really need to be at the town hall where all of the municipal meetings are. And I feel like we should be outside sometimes. We've had one meeting was with Charlie and invited the entire town. Let's do a walk of the property, just the very first assessment. And I'm all about field trips.
Field trips always get folks engaged and outside. So that's great. Great to hear, and encourage folks in the chat to share other ideas that you might have about this. And just wrapping up, thanks so much, Mark. Really exciting to hear kind of the nascent town forest project that South Hero is potentially pursuing, and exciting to hear too the engagement from the Conservation Commission, which I understand is a little bit newer in the community. So great to hear that. And we'll just plug, we as a board have been talking and know there's been interest from our members in learning more about creation and management of town forests and Conservation Commission's role in that, and are thinking of some sort of webinar series to talk in more detail about that. So would love to explore that further with folks as we move forward. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jim Armbruster, who is the lead scientist with the Vermont Institute for Natural Science, to speak a little bit about the Kestrel project and some of the other work from Vin. So go ahead, Jim.
Thanks.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Can everyone see my screen and hear me all right? Perfect. Yeah, so I'm the lead biologist over here at the Vermont Institute of Natural Science. We're a nonprofit nature center down in Quechee, Vermont. We actually were founded back in 1972 by a group of concerned residents. The Healthy Ottaquechee River, actually the river in the picture there, right in the middle, was being polluted. Towns were actually dumping raw sewage into the water. And this group of people came together. They actually sued the town. They won that. They cleaned up the river. But they realized there's some disconnect between, why was that happening? And so our mission since that has been to motivate people to care about the environment. And we do that today through our education, our research, and our avian wildlife rehabilitation. A lot of people know our educational programs. We go on the road to area schools, usually bringing Raptor with us. We have our nature center here with exhibits and daily programming. We're also embedded in schools, helping with their STEM curriculums. We also are known as a bird place, so folks know to bring their sick, ill, injured, orphan birds to us. We see about 1,000 birds every year in our rehab facility, and we have about a 40% success rate releasing them back into the wild. So we do a lot of different things. Mark touched briefly on one of our main research projects too, and that is our American kestrel monitoring. So American kestrels, a lot of you are probably familiar with American kestrels. They are a species that is declining most severely in the Northeast, unfortunately. They're very easy to spot. They're very easy to identify, but we are losing them in the state. And so our project is to look at some of the reasons why we might be losing the species and hopefully trying to slow that decline along with some regional wide efforts as well. So most folks have probably seen an American kestrel, very, very easy to spot. They're one species you can tell male and females just by looking at them. So we've got our males on the left, our females on the right. The males have that kind of bluish gray color, blue hat there. The females are more that orange, rusty red color. So one of the first things we ask folks is, have you seen kestrels at your property? And sometimes people say, oh, I'm not really sure. And so we give them these pictures and like, oh yeah, that's definitely what I've seen. They have a very distinct call as well. I couldn't embed that into the slideshow, unfortunately, but the killie call is very, very obvious. That really cues folks in that they've got kestrels on their property or in their area. Kestrels are a falcon, so they're North America's smallest falcon. Think of the peregrine falcon, right? Curved, pointed wings, long, thin tails, very fast flyers. These birds are catching insects and birds on the wing. They'll also go after small mice and rodents and things like that, but very, very fast with that body shape. So if you see a bird with that silhouette flying over your field, you've got a kestrel nearby. They've also got some really cool adaptations. They've got this, look really closely at the beak. That little notch is called a tomial tooth. And that tooth actually can, with the leverage it creates, break its prey's neck, snaps it and kills it instantly. So pretty ferocious little predators out there in the wild. They've also got the striping under their eyes. Think of ball players. They've got the paint under their eyes to keep the sun glare out. The kestrels have the same kind of thing. They're hunting in fields. They can't wear little sunglasses, so they've got those feathers there. Helps reduce the glare as they're hunting in those fields. You can see that Vermont is in their year-round range. If you want to see kestrels in the winter, though, you usually got to go to Addison County, and that's where they're pretty easily to spot in those fields along the roads and power lines and things like that. But they are considered a year-round resident here. They do migrate, so say we'll lose some of our kestrels. They'll migrate down south for the winter, and they start to come back. In our project and for our monitors, we really start looking. In some places, we start looking in February and say, just keep an eye on your box, see if there's birds coming back, if they're active nearby. This is kind of a harder to understand graphic, but if you look at this outer ring here, the darker blue, so March, April, May, and this black line here, that's when migration starts in the spring, right? So March, April, May, it peaks in this thicker line here in the middle for April. And that's when we really start to see birds come back to our area. And we ask our box monitors to start keeping an eye on the boxes, make sure they're all tidied up, ready to go for the season, and let us know if they start to see pairs come back in their area. The inner ring, that's a little bit less like a kind of a grayish color there. You can see the black lines. The outer black line is when they have eggs. So that's April, May, and kind of tails off into June. Usually April, May, we have eggs in boxes. And then the inner line for that ring, that grayish ring, you can see they have young. So from May, June, July, we have young in our boxes, and it peaks in June and July. And this year was kind of a later year. We had birds into middle of July that were still in our boxes. It was kind of a weird year for kestrels. So that's kind of the time we're looking at these boxes being active in our area. And we ask our monitors to poke in once a week if they have activity, so they can catch the egg laying date and the hatch date, and that can help us time our banding efforts. This is a map of their declines, right? So I said the most severe in the Northeast, that bright red color, but declining all across their range. A few pockets of green in there. It's kind of stable, not decreasing, not increasing, but lots of red on that map. And this map is even out of date, so there's probably some updates that need to happen as well. Another way of looking at that decline, right? So you can see this ends in 2008, but a steady decline across the atlases here. And this is more specific Vermont data. Again, just there's been 2 breeding bird atlases so far in the state, and between the 2, there's been a downward trend. We're actually in the process of starting the 3rd atlas, so we'll get some more updated information, hopefully soon, on a lot of species, kestrels included, but downward trend. And there's a lot of questions as to why that is. And there's a lot of theories as to what's going on out there. But more and more, it seems like it's multiple factors that are causing these declines. When you think about Vermont and its structure, it's mostly forested at this point. We're losing a lot of farms and open areas to development and different things, and forests are coming back. So that suitable habitat is one factor. And along with that, nesting trees. These birds are secondary cavity nesters, so they're looking for dead snags with holes in them from other species that open those cavities up. And landowners sometimes cut those down, or they fall down because they're a safety issue. And so we're starting to lose a lot of good structures in what limited habitat we have left. And we're actually finding more and more that kestrels are nesting in boxes, and there's fewer and fewer natural nests that are being found. So they're really starting to rely on nest boxes, it seems. Pesticide and insecticides, these modern chemicals are more potent. They're still out in the environment. The neonics are more potent. We're starting to see rodenticides show up in our birds. Not only do those get rid of prey, right? They outright kill the rodents and bugs and things like that, but they also start to build up in the raptors, and they start having issues, fatalities and unable to reproduce and have young. Competition with Cooper's hawks. So Cooper's hawks used to be accipiters, now they're asters. They're a different type of raptor out there that are competing for similar resources and are doing a better job. They're not outright predating on kestrels, but that does happen occasionally. So that's a species that's doing well, that's potentially limiting kestrels. Mentioned the starlings. Starlings are just a huge issue. They do take over nest boxes. They'll kick kestrels out, and they'll take over some pretty good sites. So in future years, we'll get a little bit more strict on our starling controls at our nest boxes to really knock that down as best we can. And then overall climate change, it really impacts everything, including kestrels. So it's kind of the catch-all of everything else, and then also climate change on top of that. So lots of theories is what's going on out there. And one theory is to start putting out nest boxes to see if that can help these populations. So you saw that the South Hero Conservation Commission built a bunch of boxes, which is great. They have that local knowledge of habitat. They have those landowner connections. They have the ability to get materials and build those boxes and get them out into good kestrel habitat. So these plans are fairly easy. They're not super involved, but you could put together an event like that, which is great. And then we look for suitable habitats. We're looking for about 20 to 30 acres of open habitat for these boxes. You can put them in an area as small as an acre, like an acre field around a box, as long as there's fields and other adjoining areas that make up about 20 to 30 acres of open space for these birds. We say about a half mile between boxes as well. So if you're looking at a property that's fairly big, you can put potentially more than one box on that property. You can see, agricultural areas, farms. We could put them in all sorts of places. These are just some different pictures of some successful boxes and properties we've had young at. This is the Windsor grasslands over in Windsor. Great habitat, had birds nesting there for many, many years. This is like the ideal when we're looking for a field. This is kind of what we're looking at, and having that box in the middle of a field, about 8 to 10 feet off the ground, is really all they need. This box is a little tall, but 8 to 10 feet is kind of the minimum we're looking for to get a box up. They can go on trees, although we try to discourage landowners putting them on trees. They're more at risk to predation if they're on a tree. That being said, this box has been successful for several years, so it can work. We just prefer that post in the middle of a field if possible. And that doesn't always work with landowners who need to hay or have cattle, and we understand that. So we'll definitely look at different sites and see where they can go. Side the barns too, we've had some success with boxes on barns that are not super active. So, if you're in and out every so often, that is usually not enough to disturb these birds, luckily. And so, like I said, when they start to come back, we get the females that start to use the box. The box on the right needs some bedding, you might notice. So we ask that folks put a little layer of bedding in there to make sure because they'll just lay their eggs right on the wood, and that's not always good for them. The eggs will roll around. If they do hatch, they can have leg issues with their development. So little layer of some material in there, but you can see on the left, there's a little fluff ball underneath that mom there, a little marshmallow peeking out. So we ask our monitors to go in this time of year when they're starting to lay eggs, when they start to hatch, and just get an idea of what's happening for us. And snag a picture if you can, send it our way. And that helps us time out when we need to get out there and ban these birds. Sometimes you can encounter them right as they've hatched, either the day after or 2 days after. This is a nestling that was literally hatched like that day that we happened to be at that box and check it out. We don't tell our landowners to hold the birds. Obviously, that's one of our staff doing that, but you can still see cute little dinosaur. Hopefully this video works for everybody. This year, we've actually been able to put some cameras in our nest boxes. So this is a nestling just hatched, getting fed by mom. And I hope you can hear the noise because it's adorable. And we help landowners too. If they've got a good box that has Wi-Fi, we can help them get cameras installed, which really helps with monitoring. You can see the daily development of these birds, which is pretty cool. Oh, we don't want to watch it again. So we keep an eye on their development. This is a few days, maybe even a couple weeks old on the left there. And then on the right, you can see this bird is actually starting to show that it's a male. It's got those blue feathers. So this is when we go in and band, usually around 18 days old. We try and get into the boxes. We take measurements. We pull them out of the box first, put them in another box. We weigh them. We can sex them. We can check their health. We're able to take blood, and we've actually been able to see that there's rodenticides in some of our local birds. We send those to different organizations as well. Here's little bands. We do put field readable bands on them as well, so landowners can keep an eye on them as they come back and all that. There's a banding process, taking blood, and we see that mom comes right back after we band our bird, so it doesn't interrupt what's going on. We take standardized pictures of all of our birds, and I'll actually flip through to this female was actually the bird in South Hero. So first time use, the nest didn't didn't fledge, unfortunately. We think she was a younger mom. And so, but we're hoping she'll come back next year because she is banded and we'll know. Yeah, so ways that conservation commissions can get involved in this, we have educators can come out and do programming about kestrels. They often bring a live kestrel with them, talking about our project, talking about how you can get involved. But then you can see just getting those landowner connections, building boxes, and helping monitor is really, really helpful for us. So with that, I think I wrapped up in a minute. So
Thanks so much, Jim.
yeah.
So awesome to see the connection between what Mark shared and really the engagement South Hero had from the community in building those boxes, and then your connection to the work of VINS and really doing the American Kestrel Project. Do folks have questions for Jim? And again, feel free to throw them in the chat. We've had a pretty active chat today. So Mead is asking, can conservation commissions reach out to you, Jim, to see how they can best get involved if they know landowners or are interested in hosting an event?
For sure. Yeah, I'll share my email in the chat. You can just email me directly and we can get you connected.
That's great. I know, yeah, the event in South sounds like the event in South Hero with having the kestrel there was really engaging for the community. Really awesome to have that connection. Great. Well, with that, again, feel free to populate questions in the chat. Jim's put his email in there if this is something your commission would be interested in engaging with in more detail. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Tolan, who's a staff biologist with the Vermont Center for Eco Studies. Kevin is going to share some of the work of VCE and how conservations can get involved in the work. So I'll hand it over to you, Kevin.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. Beautiful day, and thanks for taking the time to listen to us talk a bit. I'm going to share my screen real quick. See if that goes. Oh, nope, wrong screen. Sorry. Cool, that looks better. Well, if you're not familiar with Vermont Center for Eco Studies, we are a research nonprofit headquartered in White River Junction. We primarily focus on pollinator and amphibian research, but a lot of birds as well. And I'm just going to get right into talking about what I want to talk about because I got a lot to cover. Vernal pools are where a lot of our amphibians breed. They're usually seasonal depressions in the forest. And then they also don't have a permanent inlet or outlet. So that prevents fish from getting established and breeding there. Because of this, they provide excellent breeding habitat for some of our species. When they fill in the spring, they'll become anywhere from half a foot to like over a meter deep. So they can be some really large ones. And they just kind of look like these mud pits in the woods filled with mosquito larvae. But I like to think of them as like the coral reef of the forest. They are very small areas with a huge outsized impact on the surrounding landscape. This is a photo or an illustration that I really love that just shows some of the diversity that we have in our pools. Wood ducks will breed near them, wood frog, spotted salamander, blue spotted salamander, fairy shrimp. And the process of sun going to algae, going to aquatic wildlife, going to terrestrial wildlife doesn't occur in our forests without vernal pools. And from this diagram on the right, you can also see it's a very complicated interwoven food chain. So a lot of times you'll have wood frogs that will breed in a vernal pool. There'll be thousands of them. They'll disperse around the landscape, and with them they bring nutrients, they bring food, they just bring the sun's energy to the terrestrial landscape. One issue we have with vernal pools is that they are so small, so they are really easily destroyed. And in this image, you can see in the center, this dark section. This is the color infrared image, so it's really just showing the chlorophyll in plants. So this red area is all coniferous forest, is taking the winter. The area without any red is deciduous forest. There's no leaves. And this dark mark here is a telltale signal for a vernal pool, just a depression that probably has some water and is reflecting this image. But because it's so small, you go look a couple of years later and there's a house built over it. It's really easy to do that, whether it's inadvertent or just someone not caring. And the only way to really protect these and enforce any of the laws we have to protect them is to make sure we have them mapped. We have to know where they are, and we have to have proof that they were there. Just some quick background info on vernal pool management. This is a 400-foot radius buffer around the vernal pool, and this is what we call the vernal pool life zone. This is where most of the individuals will spend their entire adult life. So we recommend in the vernal pool, don't do anything. Just leave it as it is. Don't put any machinery in it. Don't add any wood to it. In the 100 feet surrounding the vernal pool, try and keep any disturbance to a minimum. So in theory, 75% canopy cover, but ideally you would do nothing. And then in the next 300 feet of buffer, keep around a half, about 50% canopy cover. And that's important to maintain like a soil moisture that these amphibians can use when they're on the land. Because they only spend about 2% of their life above ground, maybe 5% at most. They are mostly underground. The one time we do see them is during the breeding season. And this is going to be another issue that we have with vernal pools, is that we keep building roads where the vernal pools are near. And so it's not just the vernal pool that's getting destroyed. It's also the amphibians that are migrating to and from the vernal pool each year. So if you have a vernal pool 50 meters up, 50 yards uphill is a road, and you have amphibians overwintering over the road, you're going to see a lot of mortality. And when you have a vernal pool mapped, you can use that to model where these crossings are to prioritize conservation and potentially future infrastructure projects. And this is a really exciting study published this year from UVM, from my old professor and a friend and a colleague, that there's a wildlife crossing in Moncton, and before and after there was an 80% decrease in the number of amphibian mortality. And that's huge, obviously. Even like 5 cars a minute can cause like a 50% population decline. So cars are really damaging to these species that breed in the vernal pools. And if we have pools mapped, in theory, we can put in road crossings when it's time to do road repairs, which is great for amphibians, but also all wildlife. And so I'll finally get to what I'm here to talk about mostly is the Vernal Pool Atlas. This is a joint project with Vermont Fish and Wildlife aimed at just that, trying to map all the pools in the state. Vernal pools are only really present for a couple months in the year, or when they have tadpoles and salamander larvae in them. So it's a fast and furious few months to get these things mapped. So our hope is that with this Vernal Pool Atlas, we can crowdsource data from vernal pools that maybe you know of on your land or your town forest or anywhere that you might know of them. So I'm going to go right in and just do a quick demo of it so people can at least get a sense of how it works and see what it has to offer and see if it might be something you're interested in participating in. So when you first open up the website, it's vpatlas.org. You'll see this homepage, lovely photo, and you see a map of all the pools. What I usually do is up here on the left, I just click View Pools, and that brings you to a full screen image of all the pools. You'll see there's 3 colors. The dark blue ones, I'll make the sizes bigger. These dark blue ones are confirmed vernal pools. That means that they have landowner data, landowner permission to map the pool, and proof of or evidence of amphibian breeding. When they are added to these pools and confirmed, they're also added to the state wetland inventory, and so also the planning atlas and all that stuff. So if you want to get your pool added to a wetland inventory of the state to make sure that your town's pools are conserved and developers know where they are, this is a way that you can do that. The orange pools are mostly remote sensed using satellite images. So with those pools, they could be there, they could not be. It could have been like a shadow cast from a rock. So if you have a lot of these orange dots, that's a site you can go out to, you can visit, and then if there is a pool, you can say yes and say, how big it is and what wildlife's breeding there. And if it's not, you can also say no, and that will be very beneficial for us to know, so we don't spend more time looking for it, and so we can try and improve our model for future vernal pools. And then the light blue ones are mostly from towns that did inventories before this was started. And so they're not confirmed because we don't have associated landowner data, but they are likely or probable, as we put it. So I'll give one example down here in Dummerston. You see that there is only a couple confirmed pools, but a ton of probable pools. That's because in Dummerston, they did an inventory. They submitted their vernal pools to us, but because we didn't have landowner permission, we can't officially add them to the database. So I'll zoom in on Dummerston, use that as a case study. Over here on the right side, we have some different layers you can use. I usually just use the Google satellite images. Another really nice one is the VCGI CIR. This is that color infrared imagery that can let you see vernal pools down on the ground, especially in areas where there's no canopy cover. But I'll go back to Google satellites for now, and I might make these just a little bit smaller. One of the other great things we've done is added a bunch of different boundaries you can do. So say you want to look at your town boundary because you just want to know, I'm only looking in Dummerston. Great, cool. Now you can also use the parcel boundary. If you hit both town boundary and parcel boundary and click in it, you'll have all those parcels pop up of who is the landowner or the taxpayer for said parcel. So I'm not going to hover any right now. I don't want to show anyone's personal info. But if you were to hover over this box here, I almost did. I might have. Sorry. But if you were to hover over these, it would say the name of the person and in some towns their address. So this would be really great of like, oh, I don't know if this is on someone's land, but they're my friend and it looks like it's near them. You can use this layer to actually get a sense of if the pool is on the property or not. And then I'm going to turn off the parcel boundary just to not have that show up. Say you want to see what's been observed at a vernal pool in the past. You can go click the pool here, view visit, and you'll see this pool was last visited back in theory before 2012. I think that's just a broad date, just 2012 or before. When they went, because it wasn't done with our protocol, this is from a past inventory, we don't have all the info. But you can see here, they saw 25 wood frogs. So if you're a landowner or if that's a public piece of land, you could submit data from it and be like, I visited this pool. Here's the landowner, and here is the amphibian eggs I found. You can do that via the website. If you go to add data, hit add data, and then I'll just use my junk login. You can go and say right here, this pool was not mapped, and then zoom in and say, that's the pool I found, and it's KWN 116. So it's just a very useful, hopefully user-friendly, we're still working on that a bit, way to submit data from your town if you're so interested. I think these are great for conservation commissions because it's a great group activity, or it's something that you can do because you're out hiking and you stumble across a vernal pool. I'm also hoping to do maybe some workshops with some groups this year. I think I'm in the talks of doing an Addison County area workshop, maybe for anyone that's interested in learning more about the process and the egg mass ID. And I'd be happy to talk further about maybe coming out with your commission, or ideally if we have a couple commissions come together for a day. I'd love to do that. I'll just stop now. I'm going to share my screen that just has the links and info on it. But I hope I am right on time, and I hope I didn't go too fast. And if there's any questions, email me. I'm happy to Zoom sometime in this off season so that we're ready to go and hit the ground come March and April once amphibians start moving.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Yeah, and so for folks, Kevin's going to share his screen, I think, but we can share all of these slides after the fact, so you can have access to these links.
Yep.
Kevin, there was a question in the chat. Karen McKnight's asking if there's a link between the Vernal Pool Atlas and the work and database created by Jim Andrews.
It's slightly different data. We have gotten data from him based on the vernal pools that he's documented, but because that's more presence absence data of individuals and we're looking more at like the community scale, the type of data we're collecting is a bit different. But if you went to go look at those KWN pools, the light blue ones, a bunch of those did come from the Atlas when we were originally collating data. So the answer is yes, but also it's slightly different.
Great, that's helpful. So I suspect there might be some conservation commissions or groups of conservation commissions interested in doing a workshop with you. So should they reach out to you, the contact email here, or reach out to you directly?
Yeah, reach out to VP Atlas at vtecostudies.org. I have a colleague, Dana, that helps me keep all of my community science stuff, and she'd be helping probably plan some of the stuff and coming on out too. And that's of course also an email I have access to. So just for my own sanity to keep everything in one place, I appreciate that. But if you do email me personally at ktolan@vtecostudies.org, that's totally fine as well. Or if any other questions, I'm an email away. I'm always happy to chat.
Great. Well, if folks have other questions for Kevin, feel free to throw them in the chat. But Kevin, thanks so much for the presentation. Really exciting way to think about expanding, the role of citizen science and the role of conservation commissions in supporting the Vernal Pool Atlas.
Great.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So with that, we have about 10 minutes left in our scheduled meeting agenda and wanted to hold some time to provide a few more additional updates about programming we're excited to be rolling out in the next year, and then also get feedback and updates from you all as AVCC members about where we can best support your efforts. So with that, I'll hand it back to Bill.
Thank you, Marion. And wow, thank you, Sue, Jamie, Mark, Jim, and Kevin. Fantastic presentations and a great overview of on-the-ground tangible conservation work. So huge thanks again. And I should have mentioned at the top of this meeting, in an exciting fashion, if by registering for this meeting, you have entered a raffle for a fantastic AVCC t-shirt. So keep in mind, look out in your email after the meeting to see if you've won. Alex, our staff, has been awesome at making some great and super cool t-shirts. So this is the start of our 2026 membership year. So any dues following this meeting will count towards the next membership year, which ends September 30th, 2026. Most of our resources are provided at no cost, but only members can apply for the Tiny Grants program. So that leads me to our 2026 Tiny Grant update. As last year, we updated our maximum award from $500 to $700. And this year, if our fundraising goals are met, we will be looking to increase that to $800. And so we're excited to thank our 2026 sponsors, Vermont Coverts, Woodlands for Wildlife, Vermont Housing Conservation Board, Vermont Land Trust, and looking for additional sponsors. So please reach out to us if you have any leads or suggestions. And thanks again to the Nature Conservancy, Vermont Land Trust, Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission, and Vermont Natural Resources Council for supporting our 2025 Tiny Grant. So we are launching the Seedling Quarterly e-news. Our plan is to publish this the first week of February, May, August, and November. And we'll use this to announce opportunities specific to CCs, other interesting insights from on the ground, or capturing our success stories in real time. And we'll have be able to dive deeper into questions and issues raised on the AVC listserv. We're going to be launching our Town Forest Stories webinar series next year, which is a focus on how town forests are created, or the unique and special relationships that folks might have in town forests, and the diverse range of benefits that they provide to a town and our regional outdoor recreation, mental health aspect that we all benefit so much from. So if you are, in love with a local town forest, or are interested in creating one, or have been part of formalizing a town forest, we'd love to hear from you and hear your story and see if you'd be interested in perhaps presenting at a webinar series. And excitingly, our Northeast Regional Gathering is in Hardwick on Saturday, October 11th. This is a way that we see to galvanize support and host an in-person regional gathering for Conservation Commission members. And this will be our first in-person meeting since 2022 at the Lake Maury Resort in Fairleigh. And really our goal is to support building capacity and connection between neighboring CCs in a meaningful and tangible way. So again, that's co-hosted with the Craftsbury, Greensboro, and Hardwick Conservation Commissions, and we hope to have representation from 16 commissions. And a couple other things that folks can look out to, or look forward to, is the environmental leadership training provided by the Fish and Wildlife Department. These are online professional development trainings, October 7th, 14th, and 21st, and then December 2nd, 9th, and 16th, and these are free. And then we also are advertising the Vermont Municipal Day, October 17th, 2025. The Vermont Agency of Natural Resources is inviting local officials, employees, and volunteers to join for a day-long series of workshops, trainings, and networking opportunities. And there'll be a keynote from Sarah Waring, Executive Director of the Northern Border Regional Commission. And this will focus on preparing municipalities for the uncertainty created by federal policy changes. Again, that is Friday, October 17th from 7:45 a.m. to 3:45 p.m. at National Life Building in Montpelier. So, with all of those updates, I just appreciate all of you for being here. The passion that everyone has for conservation and dedication is truly inspiring. So many of you are taking your personal time outside of work, outside of other personal responsibilities, to be engaged in your local communities, and these local benefits and outcomes, no doubt, have larger landscape scale impacts. So thank you so much. And with that, I want to just close the meeting by saying we will stop recording and just open it up to the floor for a relatively informal Q&A with our peers and the AVCC staff and board. And just thank you all so much for spending this afternoon with us, and we look forward to continuing to engage with all of you.